right, everybody, and welcome back. My name is Jan, and my guest today is Chris. And I want to pick on Chris' brain in terms of how the collectibles landscape has changed, in his opinion. And obviously, we are going to talk about his passion for writing Go Collect articles about collecting. So, welcome, Chris. Great to have you here.
Oh, Dan, very nice to have you too. It's wonderful. Here we are across the world having this chat.
Yeah.
I just love this stuff. So,
And
yeah.
Veve made it possible. The same hobby.
Veve,
Yeah.
again. Right.
Great. Great.
Thank you, Veve, for all these opportunities. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, absolutely. So give me your backstory of how you've started collecting, and before we hit record, you told me you've stopped collecting for a long term and then got back into it. So give me an.
Boy, where do we start? Lots of stuff. I used to collect bottle caps as a kid. That progressed into hockey cards and baseball cards, sports cards. My dad, at one point he was quite the entrepreneur, and he ran a card trading business when he was selling tops and upper deck, and he would bring home the latest and greatest that they were about to release, like the stuff that the stores hadn't seen yet.
Yeah.
And
Okay. Cool.
kind of ask me for my opinion, and I'd be like,
Yeah.
"Oh, that looks really cool," or "That one's shiny. That one, I don't know." And but it was fun because I was involved at quite an early age, just really enjoying these things.
And
And
sorry
then
to interrupt there, but do you have some of those old boxes or?
I do, yeah.
Okay.
They're tucked away in the basement in some sealed cases,
Yeah.
and then I've got all the random stuff. But it's kind of like a lot of the things that we have as toys. You didn't think about the future, so some of those cards today, the edges are dented, of course, because I would take them to school and
Yeah.
play
Trade them and
topsies and knockdowns with my buddies, and you're
yeah.
trying to throw these cards and so. But yeah, that was pretty fun. And then that kind of progressed into the comic book realm. Just it happened that I was at a little get together with my buddies when we were 14 or whatever it was, at a friend's house, and he brought out some Incredible Hulk comics, and we were sort of like, I'd heard of comics. My dad used to read Archie comics all the time, but it was always just something for fun, to do. And then his name was Justin, and he shows us this stack of them. And I'm like, well, why are so many? He's like, well, you start reading one, and then you got to get the next one, and suddenly you're reading along. And we thought, well, that's pretty cool. Where do you get these things? And so we all went in a bus, and we went downtown. And I always talk about this because Aaron, my Collectibles, he knows the store very well. And Denis, if you're going to watch, you too. But Golden Age Collectibles down in Vancouver on Granville Street.
Oh, is the shop is still open?
It is still there.
Okay, that's
so I
cool.
mean, that's a real testament to the industry, right? You become a fan for life, as here we are. But you walked into that store, and boy, the window casing, it was kind of like A Christmas Story, if you've ever seen that movie. And where all the young kids, they're looking in the window. I think it's called Gimbel's store or whatever. And it's all the toys and fantasy, and that was sort of recreated in this experience. And you're, oh wow! And you were hesitant to go in because it was so exciting. These things, and then you go inside. And it's like, holy moly, where do I even begin? And that was my first sort of foray into comic collecting, and we all sort of spanned out. And of course, I went right to the back where all the cheap dollar comics were, because as a kid, I maybe had $10.
Which one was the first one you picked up? Do you remember?
I have it. It's Daredevil number 57, and it just happened to be sort of at the front of a Daredevil box, and I picked it out, and I just saw this cover, and I was like, oh wow. I don't know why, it was just weird. It just really resonated with me, and it was old, but I thought, well, this was a good place to start. And so I picked up a 5-set run, 57, 8, 9, read those, and then it took a few weeks until we were able to go back again. But then we started going like probably at least once a month, and we would go and we'd grab a book or two.
So it evolved into a real hobby then, and kind of like your friend made you kind of addicted then at first.
Yeah. And but it was, I think back then there was zero thought of collecting. I wasn't buying these to stack them, store them, resell them. I just really liked them. I
Yeah.
liked the way that they felt. I like the pages have this comic book smell. It's very hard to describe if you've never smelled one, right? But
Yeah. Yeah.
they have that aroma, and then suddenly it's like, oh yeah, if you bag them and they'll stay fresh longer. You can put cardboard in them; they won't bend. And this was the fellows at the front desk teaching
Mhm.
us all this stuff. We had no clue back then.
Yeah.
Today they are still in those original baggies with the original tape that's kind of turned a little gooey, but
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
them. But the boards held up. The books are in great shape. And it's kind of fun when, because my son, when I first showed him my collection, he was about 15 or 16, and he's still blown away. He's like, Dad, like, wow, like some of this stuff's like older than you. I
Yeah.
said,
Yeah.
what's
Yeah.
it, boy? But,
A lot of
and then of course,
history behind some of those pieces and great stories, obviously, as I heard. I mean, I think it's crazy how well you remember that scenery with your friends the first time. Yeah.
like it was yesterday. Like it was yesterday. It's just sort of it's one of those things when you're a kid, you get a million memories, a million things that are happening to you, like the BMX bike riding and the
Yeah.
stuff
Yeah.
that happened at school and all that. But yeah, the kind of comic collecting was a bit different. My friends and I, that was something that we all really just enjoyed. I think part of it too was because, our parents were suddenly giving us some freedom. I
Mm.
had allowance. I had a couple of little jobs that I would make some money. And then I lived about 40 something odd minutes away from downtown Vancouver. And so just the getting on a bus and going downtown, going to the comic store, grabbing some stuff, hanging out, having a slice of pizza or something with your pals, and then heading back home. It was part of this. It was a community, right? Now it
Yeah.
wasn't a big one. There was like 8 of us.
Yeah,
So
but I
that was
mean, that's a totally reasonable amount. I mean, the interconnection between people was totally different back then. So
yeah. Yeah, it was great to get together.
yeah.
So your collecting community was very contained to how far you could ride your bike.
Mm.
There was no internet. The phones were, in the kitchen, and your mom heard every call you made. So there was no sense of privacy
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
just being able to talk. So you would have to go somewhere and meet, and then, kind of share and all that. I pretty much, that was Daredevil and X-Men were the two that I got into for the most part. And yeah, and stuck around. And so then you get older, you get into your 20s, your early mid 20s, and suddenly, you're working a lot, your girlfriends are becoming more serious, and now you're moving towards mortgages and life, and then kids start happening, and like your world kind of changes really
Yeah.
quickly. It was just the things that I were collecting suddenly were, photos of my kids that I would have blown up and put up on the walls and stuff
Hmm.
like that. Or, I needed money because I play beer league hockey as a goalie.
Yeah.
That stuff's expensive.
Yeah. Okay.
Just
I don't know about that. So,
oh,
but I
yeah,
believe you.
don't be a goalie. It's expensive. Its trade-off is that I don't have to usually pay to play in the leagues and stuff
Yeah.
because everyone's always short goalies. But I could probably charge a few bucks and then buy some more Veve stuff. But yeah, so that's the focus change, right? And then yeah, one day I was just watching some YouTube, as I always like to do. It's my favorite TV channel after Hockey Night in Canada.
Yeah. Okay. So you're a huge hockey fan, I guess. So from what I
Hockey,
can
yeah.
tell, yeah.
Yeah, we're
You have
fortunate right now. We actually have a Canadian team going into the finals for another shot at it. So
when?
I think it starts Wednesday, the Stanley Cup final. It's
Ah. Okay.
our team Edmonton is everybody's rooting for them now. So
Okay.
middle of the country.
I don't know anything about hockey. That's not a sport that is big in Germany.
Yeah,
It's not a sport that's on my radar, but I can
yeah,
see a jersey in your background. Is
yeah.
it something special or is it okay, the
That's so we had a pretty famous goalie on the Vancouver Canucks one time, Roberto Luongo, who I just adored. I got to meet him once. Super nice guy, tall. Wow, they're all tall now. They grow them
Mhm.
tall. I don't know what they make these guys, but they're enormous. But he was so good back in the day. That was the 2010 Olympics, and he was the Team Canada goalie. And we both knew a restaurant owner where the teams used to go and eat after the games when they played
Okay.
in Vancouver.
Yeah.
So yeah, I got to go, and he signed this jersey for me. So on the back of it, it's his signature, and so I had it put in frame. It was a pretty
Yeah.
special thing. We were at the game. It was mayhem. The 2010 Olympics in Vancouver that's another one of those milestone moments. Like, you know exactly where you were, everything that you did. One of the fun games is when Canada played Russia, and me and a buddy were there, and we're waving a Canadian flag around, and he kept putting it down in between plays, and then he would whip it up, and then all of a sudden all the people around us are all looking around going, "Hey man, what's going on?" Well, he didn't realize, because it was so hard to get into lineups for beer.
Yeah.
So you would buy 3 at a time, which they let you do back then. So on the floor were these 6 big cups of beer. And of course, every time he put the flag down, he didn't realize he was dipping it in all this beer. And so when something
No.
great and
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
beer's and so
Yeah.
of course everyone's like,
Oh, great.
yeah. It was very fun. It was very
But
fun. But
really
another one
nice
of the
story behind that.
yeah. Yeah, so that's sort of the nostalgic connection,
Yeah.
right? Like that will always remind me of that time. And of course, as a goalie myself, I really, really like that one. I know that led to, I've got a little signed Canuck thing in the back there. That's Corey Hirsch, who didn't go quite as far as Luongo, but he was on the team at the same time. Luongo trained him. I got
At
to
the
meet
Olympic
Corey.
team.
That was the Canucks, the Vancouver hockey team after the Olympics.
Okay.
And so, yeah, but I got all these little connections. You got to meet people and get things signed off. And yeah, it's just another little fun. It's not a huge collection that I have of sports stuff. My hockey card, baseball card is probably
But I
thousands.
mean, a few meaningful pieces are enough, in my opinion. So
Yeah.
and pieces where you have like some kind of memory behind. I guess that's what one part of collecting is about, like these stories with the pieces together. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Oh, for sure.
And
Yeah. And
but
that's,
I've mentioned in the beginning when we've started talking about your collecting journey, you've stopped because of
yeah.
life changes, etc. And I mean, I think most of the people who are watching this can kind of relate. If it's collecting or another topic, that's something along the way just fell off the bus, as you can say. But you've picked up collecting back up. Why and how did it came?
Well, that's the Veve again.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, I was experimenting, back when crypto really started to take off, because I've been in digital marketing for, oh boy, well over 20 years. And so
Mm-hmm.
the way that our company works, we're always trying to figure out what's the next big trend, what's coming, what do we have to prepare for, and start learning before it becomes
Yeah,
mainstream.
yeah.
We call ourselves, when you're surfing, right? You're always watching for the next wave, but not just the next wave, the right wave.
Mm-hmm.
And so you do let some go. And so that's how we always kind of formulate what we do at work. And then I started hearing more and more about, cryptocurrency. So then I got in relatively early, not early enough on Bitcoin, unfortunately, but
When did you get in?
probably it was around between 5 and 7,000. It was trading when I started
Yeah, I
grabbing
mean
some of it.
that's not that bad.
Yeah, I just thought, yeah, you know what? Back then, I wasn't putting any real money. It was sort of like, well, it's cheap, so I'll just sort of start slowly adding. And if it does decide to go, I got in early. But that's when I started hearing about, like all these meme coins and all these other tokens. And then I got a CoinGecko account, and I started tracking things. And all of a sudden, there was this category that opened up about NFTs. And what's this?
Yeah.
And so I work in a world of contracts and agreements and insertion orders and, paperwork. And so suddenly there was this concept that, what if you could get rid of the paperwork and stamp a contract on this blockchain?
Mm-hmm.
What would that mean for efficiency? And I was hooked. I said, oh, that makes 100%.
Yeah, makes absolute sense. Yeah, in my opinion as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. I mean, I hate paperwork. I've been kind of marketing sales strategy my whole life, and I still use a pen and paper, but I don't. It's just one of those things, I like.
Yeah, but for some or for the most contract things, NFT technology as a whole, not just the JPEGs,
Yeah.
is a great concept. I think so.
Yeah, like my brother-in-law is a realtor, and we've even had this chat. And I said, like how many stacks of paper and legal documents and the amount of work that you have to sign off on, like it's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's
releasing
way
the facade.
slower. Way slower.
What's that, sorry?
It's way slower. Like the
Oh, it's way
blockchain is
slower. Yeah.
way
Yeah.
faster. Yeah.
Yeah, so I started thinking, well, that makes sense. An easy way, if this is what it is, this blockchain concept, this immutable ledger that you can't falsify or change up. I said, well, that's a game changer.
Yeah.
That's an industry changer. And so seeing, for those of us that went through no internet, and then a crash of the internet, and here we are, you and I are communicating flawlessly. Like
Yeah.
the quality of this signal has taken 20 years to get to this point. And I've seen all kinds of ups and downs and booms and failures. Watched Amazon go from, I don't know, like pennies a share to thousands of dollars a share. I've watched companies, threaten lawsuits against them because it was immoral to sell books on an internet. Where are we today? Right?
Yeah,
So
yeah, definitely. And where are we
that,
going? That's
where
the
are we
even
going?
that's the even
Yeah.
more interesting part.
Yeah, so that's where I kind of thought, well, this Ethereum thing makes a lot of sense, and then this Bitcoin is making sense, and then these NFT things are making sense. Now, how does that work? And, sort of shamelessly, if you remember BitBoy Crypto before he kind of fell off the
Yeah.
rails a little bit, but he talked about this. There was 4 or 5 Decentraland and what was it, Meta, the other one there. But
Sandbox.
anyways, Sandbox, and then he mentioned Omi.
Yeah, I
And
think I've seen that video. Yeah.
yeah, way back. And he says, keep an eye on this because they're going to talk about transferring, basically JPEGs into ownable assets. And I said, that's going to take a while to get people. It's a lot of people still didn't know what JPEG stands for,
Yeah.
right? What's a GIF, right? But why would you own that? I can print it out and own it, put it on my wall. There you go. I own it. But it's not transactional ownership. No one's going to buy my printout of a PDF.
Yeah.
So that, to me, when there was the connection of the e-commerce capability, the trackability, the ownership, I said, okay, that's something. And so, of course, I bought some OMI token. I thought this kind of the concept like you used to buy stocks in companies, right? Well, this
Yeah.
can go up. I'll take a chance on it. It was very inexpensive. There was a lot of zeros in front of the decimal place.
Was it before all these big announcements in the beginning with Disney and Marvel? Way before.
Yeah, before that. And so I was really early. And then they dropped the McFarlane, the Batman.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, that's kind of neat. I mean, I'm a Batman fan. I like Batman. I like Michael Keaton as Batman, and I like Val Kilmer and all the guys. I love the shows and whatnot, but I wouldn't call myself a hardcore DC collector.
Yeah.
And I was always the Marvel guy. And so I didn't really do anything, but I said, well, that's interesting. I'll watch this. And then I remember, I guess a few months went by and suddenly it was August. And then they dropped MC1 and Fantastic Four 1. And
Yeah.
that's when I took notice. And so I said, okay, now I'm really going to start watching this. I didn't understand
you
it.
knew from back in the days when you started collecting with comics, right?
Yeah. The Marvel Comics one got me hooked because I said, how did they do this? How did they get Marvel to agree?
The
Like
licensing part and all that, yeah.
There's less than 100 of those, I think, that exist in the world. At least there's under 70, I think 65 or so that have been graded. They are incredibly scarce.
Yeah.
Only because when that thing first came out back in the day, they made 1 million of them. But again, what's a comic book? People threw them out. Parents didn't like their kids reading them because there was violence and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And like, oh, no, not for us. And so not many were held on to. But that was like, okay, that's a pretty big IP. Who's Veve? What's Zakomi? So I started doing a lot more work. Meanwhile, I watched the drop. I think it was at $7. I didn't buy it on the drop.
Me
Shortly
neither.
after.
Me neither.
Yeah. I wish I bought 1,000.
Yeah.
But I watched, and then of course, all of a sudden, it dips down to $2, and I was like, oh yeah, see, well, there's no real demand here. I waited and I watched, and then James Bond dropped, and I said, okay, that's it. Like I just love James Bond, and so I got some of the whiteout posters. I completed my first set.
Okay, cool.
Because you collect comic books, you tend to collect sets.
Yeah.
That's sort of how it goes, right? And so I thought, oh, I have a set of James Bond NFTs. That's pretty cool. And then all of a sudden, the price point started to creep up on those MC1s, and Fantastic Four 1 dropped, and then Journey into Mystery and Amazing Spider-Man #1. And I was like, hold on a second here.
Yeah, what is happening here? I mean,
What
the
is
hype,
happening?
yeah, the hype was so intense, in my opinion.
So intense. Yeah. It's $7. I said, "The books are worth hundreds of thousands or
Mm,
millions in the real world. How can I get this for $7?" And so I think that initially was also part of the challenge. People thought, well, it's cheap because it's a reprint.
yeah,
It's a facsimile.
yeah,
And to this day, there's still fudders that call them
yeah,
reprints and
definitely.
facsimiles. They're not making the connection that this is a licensed asset.
A
This is
licensed
the
asset
brand that is
that is just changing the medium, but
right.
still for the first time on this new medium. And yeah, I think
Yeah.
when this
That was
makes
the part
like
that got
click,
me.
huh?
That's what got me. It said there was a licensed asset. The brand, the IP are endorsing this. And as far as collecting a first goes, these are digital firsts. And so to me, okay, there is a difference, obviously, between a physical and a digital. But if you
Mm,
like getting brand new assets and being first in on something, these are brand new assets. So it's kind of when you listen to, I always refer back, like Michael Saylor when he talks about Bitcoin. He's like,
yeah,
look, it's a new asset class. It didn't exist 15, 16 years ago. It's taking a lot of time for people to understand. Most financial brokerage firms, like my own financial planner, said to me clearly, I can't sell it to you.
yeah,
I'm not endorsed. I'm not compensated. I'm not trained. We don't have the pieces to buy it. So in
mm,
Canada, we now have ETFs, which are wonderful that we're allowed to do this. So you can actually acquire assets direct,
mm,
like spot Bitcoin is an ETF, and
yeah.
they're allowed to buy that now. But that's kind of where the world is right now. And you think of the trading economy, most of these financial houses still, I believe, don't have the tools or abilities to start calling up their investors. If you ever, like Leonardo DiCaprio in,
Yeah,
what was that money show he's in? He's like, you got to buy it right now.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I don't think those floodgates have opened. So it's still, I mean, 15, 16 years in, I still say early. The next 10 years is going to be massive levels of adoption and growth that,
So many people can be onboarded.
yeah, it's going to be very different because I don't just think people grasp how the system works, which is maybe it's an advantage, maybe it's a disadvantage for me. Like I get how the internet works because we work in the architecture of it all day long. I look at it simply, right? It's a pipe.
Hmm.
That pipe didn't exist before. Now it's created. Now it can bring a new type of data to the world. It wasn't meant to transact on. It was meant to do this, communicate, content,
Yeah,
read. It wasn't meant to move money. It wasn't meant to verify contracts and transactions. It's being asked to do a lot of things it wasn't originally built for. So the whole system is sluggish and prone to attack, right? It's really easy to get rug pulled,
yeah,
scammed. It's
definitely.
because there weren't the thoughts of this. So now just build a new pipe, and that pipe moves money. If you ever used to, we had I don't know if you have it over in your area, but it's called Costco. Huge, right?
Yeah,
That used to go into Costco when you paid your bill. There was a tube that went up to the ceiling and it sucked your dollar bills up and they
okay.
went into the back.
Yeah,
It's just a new pipe, but
yeah,
that pipe sucked money. It didn't suck anything else up. So that's how I look at the way that we're going towards Web3 and transactional. It's going to make everything fast, easy, but verifiable. If the speculative, because always non-financial advice, right? But if the speculative positioning is right, these are the building block assets that are going to govern the future, the next 15, 25 years of how everything is going to be put together. Like the
yeah.
way that AI is integrating, I always think of it is AI going to search for a comic book store for a physical comic, or is it just going to
Probably
go to
not.
where
Probably
the
not.
digital asset, right?
Yeah,
It's going to go to the quickest, easiest.
yeah,
So if you think of in terms of the digital, ecosystem, how that stuff works, that's where I think this stuff gets really excited. That's what hooked me finally into Veve. I said, I think I get it. And if I'm wrong, hey, you know what? I'm having a wonderful time in here.
yeah.
And
Me
the
too. Me
stuff
too.
that, yeah, I'm accumulating great assets I could never afford in the physical world. Some of the pieces that I have, some of the pieces I see people putting out, um, the Clever Jerks and the Charlie Fisher collections, the
Yeah,
stuff that California Comics is picking up. These are going to be historically significant because they have meaning, which is stamped on the front of the asset itself, which is that mint number, right? So I'm a big
Yeah,
mint number guy.
definitely,
But that's
definitely.
how I now enjoy this.
Yeah.
I hunt for mints like I used to hunt comic long boxes in the store or go to garage sales, and it's
Any
just changed.
special mints you're going for?
Oh yeah, there's a lot.
Okay, you
It depends.
okay.
So yeah, if it's a Star Wars mint, I go after the May 77. So anything like I also like palindrome, so a 5775 or something
Mhm.
like that. Marvel, I like the August 39 mints, the 398, the 839s, the 1939s, although I certainly don't have as many as
Yeah.
I wish I had.
I mean, a lot of people are looking for these, all right?
Yeah, it's really exciting for someone like me to see this because it kind of solidifies the reasoning behind Veve putting those numbers on the mint in the first place. It
Yeah.
started off everything was low mint, which makes complete sense. Usually the first 10 off a production line of anything are the most coveted. So that's fun. And there was a bonus for low mints, and that all made sense. And they're nice and clean when you see them on the asset. There's a lot of stuff like that. But then I started, okay, that's where the herd is going. How do I
Mhm.
get away and be a little more unique? And so I started focusing on early days. There's another fellow I live by, Denis. He goes by Mazerel
Yeah.
on X. Um, and we started talking about history and significant date numbers. And so anyone that's a Spider-Man fan, August 62 is a big deal because that's when Peter Parker first appeared.
Yeah, yeah.
So 628, 862, 6208 mints. And then ASM1 was March 63. So if you have a 633 mint, a 6303, these types of things, we started saying people are throwing those out because, on a 30K print run, it's just a 6,300 number. It
Mhm.
doesn't compute. And we were saying, boy, that's
But in your
meaning.
opinion, people oversee like the significance of those pieces.
Yeah. Yeah, that's sort of where we said, well, here's a little niche we could carve out because I love things like what Comic and Crypto are doing with
With the
bounties.
bounties, yeah.
Yeah, they've really spotlighted that, a year mint can be very significant because it's two things, right? I mean, there's the stamp on the Veve that they put out, and then you've got the mint number. Just seeing sometimes those match is
Yeah,
beautiful.
yeah.
So we thought that's, if I'm thinking in terms of a physical collector where mint numbers mean nothing, there's no mint number on a comic book. I mean, there's the title date on the cover and
Mhm.
whatnot. Maybe it's publication information on the inside cover, but you don't trade a physical comic book based on a mint number.
Yeah,
It's traded based on its physical quality, right? Is it yellow? Is it clear white? Are there bends in the pages? Are the staples popped out of the spine and stuff like that? Is it graded? Is it not graded? So it's a different concept of how value would be created on digital assets. And that's where we started saying it's going to come down to the mint. And
and I mean we've seen it in 2021 when like
yeah,
special mints or low mints also definitely were sold for a premium price.
they're going for premiums. I think, is it Wolverine 13? He just paid $2,500 for the Batman #1 on DC
Yeah,
Comics, mint 1940. So the year it came out.
yeah,
And a lot of people will be like, whoa, like 1,940 out of whatever 5,000 is so irrelevant. It's like, no, that's the year it came out.
yeah,
So if you see the sort of the macro level of, look down and say, oh, I get it now.
yeah,
So
definitely.
that's,
But you have to be really knowledgeable in terms of like all kinds of
yeah,
comics characters, yeah, and
yeah,
specific dates to like try to hunt
that's
for
the
those.
fun. That's the fun part too, because every time when Vivi does a drop, if it's a book that I like or has some real stopping power, I'm going into marvel.com, I'm going on the Wikipedia, I'm doing the homework, I'm
Yeah,
looking for significance. Oh, was there a movie release that came with this? And sometimes, when I start getting it, on the big drops, I'll go for a drop just because I do believe that at some point there might be value in owning the original, right? You're the
okay.
first person that minted it. Doesn't matter. It's a random mint. There
Hmm.
could be something for there. just like with an artist, if you bought the original art from them,
Hmm.
right? Each time that you sell it, you're a new owner type of thing. I don't know how that's going to play out, but
But this
on
is
those big ones,
probably a little far away, I would say.
I think so, way
Yeah,
down the line,
yeah,
years from now. But that's why I do sometimes I like the mint one, but then I get into the market and that's where I start looking for, one person's trash is another person's gold. And
yeah,
so that's kind of where I have my fun. And so I do the homework, which I love. That's part of the research, the hunting, and then I start to watch and see what comes into the market.
yeah,
It is definitely harder today because there's not as a lot of the books, there might only be 2 or 3 thousand drop.
yeah,
You don't have the number of mints that you can play
yeah.
with that we
Yeah,
used to.
just a few, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. So
which
it,
down the road, if even if we just 10 or 20x or 10 or percent x on the user base, that could be significant
yeah,
in terms of
absolutely.
what gets caught up. So
Yeah,
yeah, and that I think that could happen because at some point, you're when I think about my kids and the state of the world, particularly here where I live, I mean, it is expensive to buy housing. And so when you're going to buy something, you're probably going to be smaller and you're not going to have the space to start, stuffing it with stuff.
yeah,
Uh, Having it in your phone and being able to enjoy it is a pretty big advantage. And so they've grown up. Basically, we used to be born with silver spoons if you were lucky. Now kids are born with silver iPhones, right?
yeah.
It's from day one you're integrated with the tech and you use it every single day. So it's a very natural extension to think that that's going to be your preferred platform or format of owning these types of assets. And so
Yeah, and
that's
if we look further down the line, I mean, smartphones are not the end. So that we
no,
will have wearables and like some kind of virtual realities where this stuff, in my opinion, and I guess in your opinion as well,
yeah,
will be
yeah,
like day to day seen by a lot of people and be really relevant for like,
I think so. Yeah, that's where I think with the veveverse, we had sort of version one in the app with the showrooms
yeah.
and the vault, which
To be honest, that was shit.
yeah, I couldn't oh
No.
boy, like yeah, I had trouble with it. So I
Yeah.
didn't really do it all that much. I played around with it, but then, the veveverse finally shows up. It's like, well, this makes a lot of sense because now it's a bigger experience. You can bring your laptop, MacBook, like there's more compute power than just in your phone. It's a bigger experience. I see where that's going, and I believe that was part of the vision that David and Dan had from an early on stage. Like, not having comic showrooms was a deterrent for a long time because
Hmm.
the only way I would see them is if I was scrolling
Yeah.
through my collection,
Yeah.
and I would take hours and hours, which also took hours away from trying to be in the market and securing all these
Yeah. All
numbers.
the good ones.
Yeah. So that experience that's transitioning into this Viviverse environment and some of the work that's being done, it's already incredible. Like the work Collectors Gone Digital Josh has done and Master Roni and
Yeah, he
a whole
dropped one. He dropped one like an hour ago, like a big space, and it looked phenomenal.
yeah, the Josh one with the cars.
No,
Have you
no, no, no.
seen
I mean Masteroni.
Macaroni?
Yeah,
Okay, I'll go look
right
that
before
up.
our interview.
Okay, yeah, and it's just the quality, casual, putting
Yeah,
these little tiki bar experiences together. Hinano, a true podcast there, that Hawaiian experience, like the creativity that this is
yeah,
allowing.
yeah,
This is what comic collecting, like how many people, like this is a terrible showroom that I have in here. I just change it up every couple of months. I put something new up, but there are some people that have some incredible showrooms in their home offices or their basements or their offices, or they have storage sheds that they purchase and set up. And you see it on X, or like I always love Wolver Steve. He's a big Wolverine fan, cosplayer.
hmm,
Guy's outstanding. He knows Hugh Jackman and all this. And you look at his Wolvie room, and
okay.
it's just like it's next level. He's got the cowls and the actual helmets and real
Is he
claws.
on X?
He's on X. Yeah,
You have
Wolvers.
you have to send it to me afterwards so I
I'll send
can
it.
take a look myself.
Yeah, if you get him on the show, man, I'll be there. Just give him a try
Okay,
because
I
he's
will. I will do my
excellent.
best.
Yeah, he's outstanding. But things like that, that showcasing element is it's now just about to really go big. When version 2, version 3 comes around, when your headsets and the visual aids you're mentioning, when that starts happening, even now when because I'm still playing around with it, but I drop a few things into my veveverse and the quality is just like,
Yeah,
holy
it's
smokes,
amazing.
little details that you didn't see in the phone are suddenly clear. Um,
Hmm.
Even just putting a phone on the, a table and reading it in AR, the concept is mind-boggling because I know collectors that will never pull their comic books out of their cases ever again
Yeah.
because you just don't. I've got some of them here. I've got Hinanu got me a Daredevil 1. I have the Amazing Spider-Man 59 from the Veve
Hmm.
Comic Con in New
Cool.
York. Shout out to Gary O who grabbed that for me and had David and Dan sign it. That's never going to get opened.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, yeah. I get that. I get that.
So yeah, all of a sudden you can connect that with a digital piece that you like. I have a Marvel Unlimited account where you
Hmm.
can go on and read any book you want, but you're renting the space.
Yeah,
I tell my kids, you can certainly when you move out, you can rent for sure, get a bunch of people together and go have some fun and experience it. But at some point, you're going to want to stop renting and you're going to want to own it.
yeah,
And then you could rent it one day for
yeah,
revenue. You change the financial model. And so if I'm having all these chats and this advice, right, and here I am renting, and all of a sudden I could buy it. And some of the prices right now, like, how do you go wrong on a $1 comic
yeah.
that in the
Absolutely,
physical world is
absolutely.
defined as a key?
Yeah,
That so that's where I say, like, right now maybe we don't have the mainstream adoption from let's just say comic fandoms that, but once you start getting a few thousand more and then several thousand more and then 100,000 more, like there are millions
the
of
user
Marvel.
bases are so large.
They're so hard. Look at
Yeah,
Star Wars.
yeah.
I think if just on X alone, there's like what 20 million Star Wars fans. You don't need 20 million Star Wars fans to
Nope.
come into TV. You might need a percentage of that. And
Yeah,
all of a
yeah.
sudden,
Definitely.
wow, I didn't know I could do this. And so that Veveverse helps showcase, well, here are some things that you can do. You can play in this. You can learn skills, how to build, animate, create. You're learning graphic design capability. You're learning back end gaming tech.
Yeah,
These are the jobs of the future. So when I look at what Roni and Josh are doing, I go right back to 1995. There was no such thing as a webmaster.
yeah, yeah.
Today,
Got it.
you're a business, you have a webmaster either on staff or you're hiring an agency to pay big bucks to have those talents done. Now we're moving into the world of meta building and Web3 builders, and it's where all the developers are. They're all on the tech, on the chain. So it's like if you see where the work is being done, where the growth is coming, yeah, okay, you have two choices the way I see it. You can I live in the past a lot. I live on my memories. I love them and all that kind of stuff. But I also have to be respectful that the future is going to be a lot different.
Yeah,
Uh, how do you hedge your bets? How do you get out ahead of the packs? So this is, it's the narrative of the crypto industry, right? Everybody's early, everybody's new, nobody sees what's coming. Okay, great. Most projects are going to fail. This is
hmm,
no different than when, it's 1990, 99, let's say, and the internet, the dot-com bubble, right? I lived through that. I watched friends build incredibly solid businesses. The use case for the business, the funding that they were able to receive because of it was
hmm,
fantastic. The technology wasn't there to support the idea.
yeah,
And so ultimately, it was slow. We didn't have high speed internet. The telcos were useless. You're still on dial up for the most part with that annoying bloody sound that we had to live through. Like even games were horrible because it took them, you'd load it, put your disc in the computer, go have dinner, and half an hour later, it's finally finished loading.
yeah, yeah,
And,
yeah.
all that kind of crap.
But
LimeWire and
it's
Napster download.
in my opinion, it's so obvious that like everything goes more digital, and of course, like in my opinion, kind of digital assets the youth or Gen Z is already used to from Roblox, from Fortnite, from all the other games they are playing. So it feels definitely, in my opinion, will feel so natural for them that those things have added value.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And so here's the challenge, right? It's your biggest, let's say, collecting market, and this is all speculative of my personal thoughts, right? Don't follow me, I'm lost too, I always say, right? But you've got a massive amount of people that have grown up like me, 40, 50 years of collecting physical assets, going to the store to buy them, the experience of doing all that.
Yeah.
That's hard to let go of because it's all rooted in nostalgia. That whole process of accumulation
Yeah.
is now today it's all done with the push of a button, a click, and then you've opened up to this world of holy cow, that was so easy. I always say this across the line. Veve took the easy button approach.
Yeah,
Don't
definitely.
make this crypto focused. Don't make this all about blockchain and having to use crypto to purchase these assets. No, use Apple Pay, use your credit card.
Yeah.
Now
Consumer
you've got
friendly.
yeah, give me the option because at the end of the day, it's the root is the fandom. The root is the brand. The root is I want to own a piece of Daredevil history because he's my favorite character.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've got a thanks to Clever Jerk. I know he sent me that Daredevil in the case back there, right?
Yeah. Nice.
One of my prized little Daredevil pieces, and then I have the comic book. But I should mention too, Key Comics. I got this, I think, on Alex's show. There's my my foil Daredevil number
Yeah.
one that came from Key Comics. I just the way this all suddenly progressed into a world of blending these assets together, using them together, but it's so easy, and I don't have to talk about crypto, but that's the fandoms go after the brands, and once the brands really get on board, and I think a little bit it's the NFT narrative, the crypto narrative.
Yeah.
People are speculative, they're hesitant. These are all test subjects, right? We're all learning this thing together. But once that's gone, right?
And the
There
real
was a time,
adoption happens. Yeah.
yeah, like I don't know if you're old enough to remember, but when email showed up, people didn't like email.
Mm.
They fought it. They complained about it. They still like handwriting letters and picking up the phone and calling. And today, it's like everything's an email because you want to have some kind of written documentation that I don't have to put into spreadsheets and CRM systems. So we still use email,
Yeah.
but you don't think of it. You don't think of the tech that had to
Yeah.
happen to make that
Definitely
work.
not. No. Yeah.
Yeah, same thing with mobile phones,
Yeah.
getting off of a landline, being tethered to your wall, like
I
your
remember that.
mobility. Yeah,
Yeah. But I guess change is never easy, and a lot of
yeah,
education needs to take place for people to like really understand what's behind that technology, etc.
yeah.
And you play a really important role in this whole game. So
Thank
because
you.
you are writing on Go Collect articles about that topic,
Yeah,
let us talk about that. How did it come to fruition that you've started, or is it a thing that you've done for a
it
long
was,
time?
it was completely by chance.
Okay.
I'm not a writer. I've never professed to be one. I do have a minor in English from my university
Hmm.
days, so I learned a little bit about reading and writing. And then just through the course of work, kind of applied it. I mean, I'm in marketing, we do a lot of stuff in content and, website design for some clients and all that kind of stuff. But what I was doing was so excited about Veve and these opportunities and these things that I was suddenly acquiring that I couldn't believe that I suddenly had a 1961 mint number of
Mm.
Fantastic Four number one. I was blown. So I needed a way to share that excitement. So I was on X really, and that's where my X is all Veve fans.
Yeah.
It's 95, 98% of everyone on my Twitter page is from Veve, right?
I
But
just got into Twitter because of Vivi. I've never used it before, and
yeah,
so my
100%.
feed is like the same.
Yeah, that's the go-to. And so I thought, well, I started sharing this stuff, and sort of, I was always bridging those gaps between, yeah, I used to have to talk on the phone with a
Mm,
wire and try and hide in the dining room so I'd have some privacy from my mom, and talk in a pillow when I was on with my girlfriend or whatever, like
yeah,
nuts stuff. And so, here now I can do it like this and blah, blah, blah. And so I was bridging this gap. And then one of the prior editors at Go Collect followed me and started reading these posts and DM'd me one day and said, you've got a really unique approach on this. You ever thought about writing? I'm like, hold on. You don't want me to write. Oh my God. She's like, no, I like your passion. And I like that you're connecting everything to this journey that you've been on all these years. And then you found this. That's our collecting reader base, the passion of collecting. And so
yeah,
all right, well, I'll give it a go. And I wrote my first blog about 2.5 odd years ago now. And it was just similar to this chat almost, like, I used to ride my BMX bike and look for bottle caps. And then we got into cards and then
yeah,
comic books. And it actually did okay. And so then it progressed and I started writing a little bit more about the transition out of physical into digital. And they gave me this little title, this moniker of the Fidgetal Force, because I was bringing
yeah,
physical and
both
digital
together, yeah,
together. And it's one of the things about the space, DC Comics included, Veve, everyone else that's been participating has added to this journey that just is provided like a nonstop well to come up with concept and ideas from. The challenge is I do this, as a side, hobby type of thing
yeah,
on my
because you like
evenings.
it and you're interested in. I mean, you've told before when you're looking for mint numbers, you do like the deep research, and I mean that's like literally the same, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And so I thought, well, the cat's out of the bag a little bit. I might as well write about it. And
Yeah,
I remember at the time there was two things going on. There were the Vivi friends and family that were like, no, 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 don't talk about this. I need more time. I need
yeah,
more time.
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
trying
yeah,
to get
got
this
it.
to tell everybody.
Yeah,
And then there was the physical, side those were actually initial days. It was hard because you would get a lot of flack. Like,
hmm,
what are you talking about?
yeah,
I even had a few people like, Go Collect, what are you letting this guy write about this stuff for? Like, what the
yeah,
heck? And it was hard. And I remember I would have sort of heart to hearts with my editor. I'm like, oh yeah, I don't think this is going to last. And she's like, you know what? Screw them. If they don't see what you see, they don't have to read your article.
yeah.
Nobody does.
I mean, we will see who's wrong at the end, right?
Yeah, it could be I'm 100% wrong throughout
Definitely,
this
all of us
whole.
could be.
We all could be wrong.
Yeah,
Everybody could be wrong. We could all be wrong that I was wrong. I didn't buy Amazon when it was $1. So wrong there too. So the way I kept looking at it is I've been wrong so many times in the past. And when I look back, why was I wrong? The recurring theme was I was late. I ignored it. I didn't look at the signs and I didn't see where things were going and
yeah,
why. And so I'm spending a lot more time now going, okay, what does that next 10 years look like? Like everything for me is very long term too. I think that's a bit of a challenge when you've got, early on in Veve, it was, we were all there. We thought, oh, this is going to be some easy money, quick money. This will go like crazy, like Beeples and Bored Apes. Here we are. Now we've
hmm,
got licensed. Oh my God. Like, why wouldn't you buy a licensed NFT as opposed to a non licensed 2D image of a cigar smoking monkey on the beach? It didn't,
yeah,
that part never I understood. Get it now because those were first, right? It's that simple. And
yeah,
so
yeah,
tech allowed you to show ownership of something that had never existed before. So that was this concept. And so I started saying, well, how is this going to play out? How does this next 10 years look? What if who was it? Aaron, somebody just put an article a couple of weeks ago about a library or something in the US that is no longer renting out a particular their comic books. I think it is. They're getting rid of their comic books. They need
uh-huh,
shelf space. I don't know. But then it's like, well, is there a potential that they could rent comic books? Maybe the library doesn't have to buy them, store them, stack them, protect them,
hmm,
insure them. They could just rent them. We haven't even talked about where all this stuff could really be going. And so that's kind of where I get excited. And that becomes that's how my brain works. Is like, oh, well, maybe there's a topic I could write about that more.
yeah. I mean,
And so this,
over the long term, there are so many opportunities. As you mentioned, renting could be one. I
yeah,
think that space builder will be definitely a profession. and all that stuff.
That's
But
cool.
let us
Yeah.
just quickly go back to your first Go Collect articles. I mean, you've
Mhm.
said that there were a lot of OG collectors who were like, "Come on, what is that? What is that crap?" Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
but
So there was a lot.
let us talk about how this might have changed. Do you
Mhm.
get different feedback now, or have you like kind of converted some of those hardcore against collectors into people who are like, yeah, maybe that's is something.
Yeah. Definitely not as much in the way of the negative responses. Like when you go onto the blogs, there's a lot of people commenting now that didn't used to get comments. So to anyone out there that's watching that's taking the time to go and actually say, "Hey, thanks, this is a great article." The editor team reads those. They love those. That
Mm,
direct feedback, because you can't answer until you've read to the end of the article, and that's a challenge because people's attention span these days, like to read anything longer than 3 minutes is a pretty
yeah,
big challenge when you're competing with 15-second spots on YouTube type of
yeah,
thing, right? So that in itself, if you get somebody that then takes the time to write, and suddenly I've got comments from people that were like, at first I thought this was a racket. I couldn't understand it. I didn't get my head around it. And all of a sudden I tried it and I love it.
yeah,
And I
yeah. Really cool.
I wouldn't have known about this. And like I say, I'm not, if I had thousands of people come and sign up on Veve because of one article, hey, beautiful. But, when I hear that one person tried it, it's meaningful because that to me, that one person is going to tell probably 5 or 10 more
Yeah,
and say, yeah, you
if
know
they
what?
have a
It's,
good experience, definitely.
yeah. And so I always try to say, look, the premise has never been we're trying to push you out of the way. We're trying to recreate comic collecting. We're trying to devalue your physical assets. By God, no. I have them myself. What we're trying to say is enjoy them more. I mean, having them on your shelf and your wall, they're beautiful, they're art. Of course, there's utility just in holding it. That's some incredible utility. But now advance that.
Yeah,
Read it, enjoy it, share it. Hey, you know what? If you don't like the book anymore, but you still want to keep your physical, sell the digital. Go take that money, buy another one. Keep the process going. Read. I always
yeah,
say,
definitely.
read your books. They're fun. Um, Guys like Alex Osman collects. Just
Yeah,
the simple fact of having a comic book on a YouTube channel and reading it gives me content that I can write about and say, listen, it's not just me. Go check out this person's channel. Go watch these videos. Here's a list of some, top 10 or 15 people that I like to watch every week, and
mm,
understand what comes with this. It's not that it's a replacement of your current system. It's an addition, it's an enhancement. And you know
yeah,
what comes along with that is a 250,000 people fan base that are so passionate about this that when the company missteps, they're immediately on them to correct that. Did anyone do that? Like, if AT&T back in the day made a mistake, is everyone attacking them on say that's passion
yeah,
that our fan base, our user base really has, and I try and really share that and say, look, this is what we mean by phygital. We're
yeah.
we're blending the terms together because they are so much better. It's if you remember back in the 80s, I think it was, there was a TV commercial. Dude's walking down the street munching on his Hershey's chocolate bar. Another guy's walking down the street. He's eating peanut butter out of a
Yeah.
spoon. They bump into each other, and oh my God, my chocolate bar's in your peanut butter. Your peanut butter's on my chocolate. They argued. They ate it. They both loved it and they hugged. That's this.
Yeah.
Why compete? Why be stressful? Why, and I
And I
get fudders are great. Every market needs them. But at the end of the day, this is how it works.
And to add on that point, I mean, obviously there are more like physical collectors who could be converted or not converted. That's the wrong word, but who could also be interested in
Right.
digital collecting, and the other way around. I mean, I've
Other way around.
started through Omi, then digital collectibles, and I now own a few physical ones as well.
Right.
So it's
That's
both ways, right?
look at behind me. All this comic assets that wasn't there before Vivi.
Yeah.
Even the comic books that I've held for 30 more years were in bins and tubs in my basement, locked away, protected. I knew they were there. And now I'm going through them every couple of weeks and just changing up and just bringing them back out and enjoying them again and pairing and nostalgia and
Yeah.
teaching my kids and the neighbors that
Telling
come
these
by.
stories behind those pieces, right?
Yeah, because this still works. This still matters. Like if I have a neighbor over and we're having a beverage out on my deck here and he looks inside and he's like, "Hey, what's that?" And I bring it out. I'm like, "Oh, this is a friend of mine, Gary, that I met through Veve, who lives in Kelowna, that's 4 hours away
Mm-hmm.
from me. Knew that I couldn't get to the New York Comic Con. And so he calls me from there. "Hey, I've got this opportunity. Dan and David are willing to sign this book. Do you want to pay the money to get it?" Yes. Right.
Definitely, yeah, yeah.
And this guy did this for me. And we met once when the Veve Vancouver meetup was back 2 years ago, and Roth from Metaverse Life came
Mm-hmm.
and Aaron was here, and there was about 10 or 12 of us, and we met at that comic book store I mentioned, and then we went for dinner and we had just such a wonderful time. And I met Gary. We hit it off.
Yeah,
Again, this is what I try to explain to people. Like the fandom, the community that comes with this, it feeds out into the market. So then
yeah.
my neighbor's like, "Oh, I've never bought a comic book before. Well, here, let me show you. Here's $10 for free from my affiliate link. Go buy 5 and read them. Enjoy it." He's like, "Hey, thanks a lot for that."
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the community aspect of Veve, I've never experienced anything like it before in my life, to be fair.
Yeah, it's
So
so different.
many different personalities, so many interesting people with the same passion all over the world get together. And I mean, we are at the moment not the biggest community, but I think we will grow if the
Yeah.
market picks
So
up again and the understanding of digital collecting gets back into the heads of people.
right. The biggest tree started as a seedling, right? I mean,
Exactly.
everything grows. It's all connected. And so here, this has always been a challenge for so many businesses. Like I own an ad agency. We work with companies of all sizes, all categories, and you always come back to the same problem. I don't have the resources to scale. I can't grow a community. I can't get my fan base. And so you pay a lot of money to push marketing out to the world. Coca-Cola still spends billions of
Yeah.
dollars a year advertising. It's
Even
that's
though everyone knows them.
Everyone knows them. You
Yeah.
don't stop. You
Yeah.
got to keep going. But this, the thing that I really love about this is this fandom's 300,000 people, been relatively organic. Word of mouth, it's sharing. It's what you're doing, creating time and space that we get to talk about this. I love it because I
Yeah,
can
me
only
too.
have these chats so many times with my wife and stuff. And then she's like,
Yeah.
"All right, I get it."
Yeah, I know
Yeah,
that situation. Yeah, definitely.
yeah. Although it's funny because we were going through. I think it's am I saying it right? Savid. He makes those awesome X little panels about Veve, and he showcases all the assets.
Oh,
And
yeah, yeah, I know. Yeah.
yeah, he put one out the other day, and it had Lilo and Stitch in it, which is one of my wife's favorite Disney movies. She's like, "I can get a Stitch?" And I said, "Yes." And you have $10 that you recently downloaded from the Star Wars drop when they were
Yeah.
giving out $10. I said,
Buy
"Go
it.
buy. You can get a few now." She's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, that makes sense. I get it now."
That
Right? And
that's so
complete
that's
non-comic, non-collector. Right?
yeah, yeah.
Love
That's
that
so
brand.
so funny because like I had the exact same situation with my girlfriend because Stitch is also her favorite character, and I have the platinum Stitch and did a photo at the beach, and she was like,
Beautiful.
"Okay, I really like that one." I still don't have her on the app, but she definitely recognized it,
Yeah. Oh,
even
keep
though I
going.
talk about it all the time.
Well, yeah, it's like it's your thing, right? You
Yeah,
enjoy this, I'll give you your time, but it's sort of like, well, now it's our thing, and you're seeing it because if I'm doing this for an hour, I'm giving up an hour, but she's more than willing because like it's the how good it makes you feel.
yeah,
How good it
definitely.
makes you feel. Like the rest of this day is going to be fantastic because of this chat that we had.
Yeah,
And the old commercial from Coke we're talking about, "Oh, I want to teach the world this thing," right? if you could somehow get more and more people exposed to this and understand how fun and how passionate everyone is, and we're all really supportive of one another, at the end of the day, what does it come down to? We love this tool that gives us access to our favorite collectibles that tie us back to so many things when I grew up. And now, boy, I mean, some people didn't like it. I adored The Mandalorian. I now have, I'm one book away from the set.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So that'll happen. It's just, I got to save some gems up somehow.
Yeah.
But, when they dropped The Mandalorian, I was like, holy cow. And people are letting that go for $1. And so, I grab a couple a week because I believe that show is going to have longevity. It's going to have more seasons. I just finished watching Andor. Wow. And so now I've got a signed poster of Rogue One down in the basement, and
Ooh.
it has more meaning now because the show has connected so many dots that, like, I went opening week with my dad back in May 25th when it opened, 1977. I was, what, 6 or yeah, and I still remember that day.
Yeah.
Right. And I remember holding his hand and just looking at the crowd of people where everybody was so excited, screaming and yelling. They had like hockey sticks that they put duct tape on to make it look like a lightsaber, and they're waving them around.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Back then you could carry sharp wood in public and nobody
Yeah.
said it. But yeah, I mean, and all of a sudden now these shows are answering all the questions that we've had for, 40 something years. And it's like, oh my God, there's so much connection to the brand that sometimes I think gets lost today. Like, if you're new to Star Wars and you just started watching Andor, you're not going to understand that connection. It's too new. But here's this new beauty of the technology, right? On Disney Plus, you can watch the entire Star Wars run now in order. I did this with my son, through COVID. We watched the whole in order of the Marvel MCU.
Okay, cool.
I gotta tell you, it makes so much sense when you watch everything
And connect all
sequentially.
the dots, and so
You understand, the timeline and who Miss Minutes are, and just go watch Doctor Strange. What the hell is going on here?
yeah,
You wouldn't get that same
yeah.
concept. And so here now you're doing that, and at the same time you're collecting the assets of the experience you just went and watched, and then you can read the books and be like, oh, I see where they picked that piece up from.
And to change the topic into like future view, what do you think has to happen in like the overall digital collectibles space and on the Veve side, so that more people get aware and understand the technology and the relevance we see in those pieces?
Yeah, that's a really, really great question. It's a loaded question, but it's a good one. I think at the easiest level, it's just going to be education. Like, what I don't understand an NFT. I don't understand the technology. I don't know what a blockchain is. Most people, nor will they care. What they'll care about is when you're starting to see some of this, right? When the first real estate starts selling all their mortgages of their houses on NFT blockchains, right?
Yeah.
Their contracts are digital now. When car dealers start doing digital contracts, the banks are getting into this now, right? I mean, I know it's been quiet in the media, but central bank digital currencies and all the stuff that are happening so the banks can transact faster. Our monetary system kind of broken. It's slow, it's outdated. The concepts haven't been changed since World War II. Like, we're working on the same latency system that is not made for today's world. It was made for that world.
Yeah.
And we need more of it. We need it to work better. And so I think when you start seeing more and more of that happen, you got a $250,000 Bitcoin when the market cap of Bitcoin is pressing up against the gold system. You're going to have investors take notice now, going, "Whoops, yeah." And so when you see that shift, plus you're educating, I think the more educating that the platforms like Veve and DC can do, like, this is what this means. Write about that, talk about that, get that understanding that you don't have to be scared about this. You just have a contract with us, and we give you the right to have the imagery and use it how you see fit within, T and C and all that. But I think that's a big part. I think you're going to need, you're going to need a Beeple moment. You're going to need someone at Heritage Auctions that just paid $8 million for a single page of Marvel Comics #1 that's willing to pay $1 million to have the 1939 mint from Veve.
Yeah.
That's going to be oh my God. Okay.
Yeah.
When that day happens, which I assume will, probably sooner than later, that's where you're going to start seeing everybody piling into this now, because it'll not justify, but it'll solidify that the market is there.
Yeah.
I say that because when you look at things like Go Collect, right, they track physical valuation of auction items, graded auction items, posters, comic books, Pokemon cards. You're tracking an industry that has revenue attached to it. What happens when Wolverine 13 takes $2,500 and buys the 1940 Batman 1 mint? That's $2,500 that wasn't put into the physical realm.
Yeah.
And as an investor, as a collector, you have to make that decision. You might only be able to do that once a month, once a year, depending on your income and your budgets, right? Because you don't want to play with money that it would hurt you if you lost.
Yeah.
Right? So always be a little cautious there. But those decisions now have meaning. They have impact. I think it was Draco, the fellow that bought Marvel Comics #1, 1939. And he grabbed that a couple of years ago, paid $10,000 US. Did he make a hell of a wrong decision or a hell of a future focused gamble? I'm going with the gamble, because what better mint is there on that book?
Yeah.
And that's museum.
That's the grail of comic grails in
That's
digital.
the grail of the grail.
Yeah.
I know Charlie Fisher and Daniel at California Comics there, they just did the that 2021 MC1.
Yeah, seen that.
And a lot of people are like, what the heck? It's a 2021 mint, right? Do the homework.
Yeah,
Veve dropped that in 2021. So again, 20 years from now, what was the first Marvel comic Veve dropped?
Yeah.
Oh, it was Marvel Comics #1 in 2021. That number is going to be culturally significant, right? That will be a
really long time horizon, definitely.
Right. So that's another play, right? Like how long are you willing to say, what does success look like and when? I think if you've got time horizons, which are always a challenge, and the early days, everybody wanted fast flipping, right? We get on the phone, right? Try and win it, flip it for 10x, use that money.
Yeah.
Those were hard times. The tech was building out and all that. But now it's kind of slowed a little bit. And what you see is what you see in any market. The people that don't want to stick around for long might liquidate, right? I got to get out. I'm moving on to the next thing. And that's fine. And there's nothing wrong with that. I actually, right now, I love seeing some of these books for $1, $2.
Yeah,
because
so you can pick them up.
Grab them up. Right. If you believe in the concept of where this could be, then why would you, if I was buying them at $10 because I believed at $10 and now it's at $2, did I lose my belief in the process, the app, the product, the community? No, I just have a better chance now to dollar cost average. And some of the mint numbers that I'll buy are, they're 5, 10, 20x the floor. I don't buy as many of them. I might only be able to grab 1 or 2 a month or whatever, because I budget, right? Yeah. But if that costs me a lot and I can buy 5 more books at $2, and that brings the price of that one equatable now to the 5 I just bought at the market floor, imagine when in the future. That's how I look at this long term. That's the vision. Yeah, and it's just, I'm patient because I've gone through these cycles over and over again. I've seen
there
the
are cycles and like physical collectibles as well. If you look at Pokemon cards, comics, etc. So obviously, because like the digital space is way newer and definitely more volatile, it's obvious that like the waves are kind of bigger and you get bigger swings. But I guess, as you said, it's important for some people because now you have the chance to pick them up for cheap, in your opinion.
Right or wrong, I look at the volatility as our friend, because in traditional, like in the mortgage world, right? You might buy a mortgage for 25 years. You're not flipping your house and moving out every day or
Yeah,
every week. When you buy your car, it comes usually with a 4 or 5 year lease or finance term. I'm not flipping the car. And then, once it's paid off, you have an option. Okay, well, what cycled the bubble? Is this a good time to sell my used car? A year or two ago, it was a great time to sell used cars. Right now, not so much.
definitely.
Housing markets go up and down. Collectibles go up and down. Stock markets go up and down. But when traditional stock market investing, a 4 or 5% swing was a big deal. You piled in if a stock fell
Yeah,
4 or 5%. I don't get up for 5% now. I'm in a world where I'm used to 20, 30% swings. And
yeah,
when I see those happen, pile in. So I think right now we're in a little bit of a downswing continuing, although I do see a lot. The narrative it's becoming a lot more positive. You're seeing a lot of
definitely.
floors starting to creep up.
Yeah.
I think Stacker has really, really helped at people being able to buy assets with their OMI, provide some utility for the OMI, because maybe they've been holding on to a lot of coins that now I don't have to put more money into the app. I can draw off what I've already invested. So I see a lot of these things happening. And then I think for, future focused stuff too, I like what some of the changes have gone on with Veve, the 30-day comic burn, some of the scarcity in these things now
Yeah,
that
definitely.
I think a lot of people don't understand that, or they don't know that the books were burned and suddenly there's only 800 in existence and you're letting that go for $2 on the floor. If that was
Mm.
an asset, the collectible, some of the ones that we're seeing, right, they're not going for $2. And so the I look at that as positive. I've been trying to collect, going after a lot of the ultra rares that I was missing, because in the early days I liked the pencil art of the rare, the black and
Mm.
white look,
Yeah,
but I also like the value to dollar for the MCP points.
yeah, definitely.
You got 2 points for $4 or $5,
Are
but
you
now I
looking
can
on?
stack in the ultra rare. So
Yeah. Are you looking on MCP that much? Is it part of your strategy or is it a byproduct of your collecting?
yeah, bit of a cycle. Like that right now, I'm doing it because it makes so much sense. So to be able to pick up ultra rares under $20,
Mm.
and that, for the most part, that could be adding 5 points a day to a
Yeah,
comic set that already has a high set point with a 6 points for a secret rare and 3 for
yeah,
the ult. Um, that becomes a big deal. So when you start calculating
yeah,
cost
yeah,
per
definitely.
MCP, yeah, adding these under $20 ultra rares,
Cheap
it's the
MCP points, yeah, and they are
cheap
compounding over
MCP.
time.
Yeah, and so I don't know where that's going, what Veve has in store for MCP. There has to be something long term, I
Yeah,
believe in. There's probably a vision there. But those points, if they do become significant, and there's people out there now that are getting
I
four,
mean,
5, 10,000 a day.
Vivi has to make them significant, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
otherwise, like the main and core and long-term collector base Vivi has built, like they feel betrayed if
yeah.
over time nothing big happens with MCP.
It would be like having your Air Miles Visa,
Mm,
with your favorite airline, and you collect all these points, and then you think, oh, I've got these free trips coming up, or I get, maybe I bump up to first class or whatever, and then yeah, your points are taken from you. Air Canada tried this a few years ago, where they suddenly said, yeah, you got 1 year to use all your points, and everyone's like, what?
yeah. How much should I fly?
Yeah, hold on a second here, right? Up in arms, everybody gets mad. So I think you kind of got to watch and be cautious about that. But I do believe at some point, and they've tested stuff,
Yeah.
right? Your rank, your ability to purchase certain items that come out. Like I always look at, what if and it's all speculation, I have no clue, but what if they dropped the Millennium Falcon? And what if they only released 1,000 of them? How
Mm,
many endpoints would you use for that? There's only 1,000? I probably use a lot,
yeah.
right? And so there
On
are
that piece,
mechanisms.
not for me. I would do the same on Son Goku.
Okay, right.
Yeah,
Okay. Everyone's got their big favorite. That's the thing. And but again, that's the beauty of having these points,
yeah.
is you get to choose when you use them. Um, that's, I think that utility will come from these at some point. And then who knows, right? Maybe by version 3 or 4 of the metaverse, those MCP points allow you to purchase tickets into a concert. or an artist is doing a live reading and a
Mhm.
signing of a comic book, and you're able to use MCP points as access,
Yeah.
things like that,
Yeah.
or you get to the front of the line, or um, I think there's going to be some ways that they'll be able to use that for sure. And so those that have them, right? And so the I also, again, it goes right back to the beginning of the chat. Comic collectors do like to collect sets, right? You collect, my Kitty Pryde Wolverine run. I still have that. That's one of my favorites, and so now it's there. It's a six run. So do I get 5 or 6 books in a set for Veve? Yes. The challenge is that I'm always that guy. I always like what David used to say, right? Buy in threes, right?
Yeah.
One to
Yeah.
enjoy and read, one to hold, one to sell. And
If you can afford it.
that's the challenge,
Yeah.
right? I need more gems.
Yeah.
I always need more gems. So that's kind of why, like, I'm going and looking at, right now, all the eyes are really on these low runs, the current burns and all that kind of stuff. And then I just picked up, Spider-Man 3 with Dr. Octopus, right?
Mhm.
That ultra rare has been in the hundreds of dollars of range for so long, and now it's under 20. Now's the time.
Yeah.
I grab it. I complete the set, and it's good MCP points. And so again, right, check that one off. So a lot of the grails, right, the big books that sell for hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars in the real world, I'm focusing on a lot of those to clean those ones up, and then whatever's left, I'll come back in and try and snag some of the newer stuff. But
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it's all over. I'm all over the map. I have a few strategies going at the same time, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's messy. But that's
As it seems, you're absolutely enjoying it, enjoying like this new way of following fandoms and your passion of collecting. So,
Yeah,
Chris,
that's been great.
it has been an amazing interview. And before we wrap up, first of all, I would like to know what would you like to say to like new collectors who come into this space? Maybe some tips from your end, and then give yourself a shout out. Where can people find out more about you and your articles and stuff?
Oh boy, yeah, those are great. New users, I would say, take your time. Don't feel that you have to jump in and listen to all the hype, and just collect what you love first. That's always the mentality. Find the brand or the IP, find the character, start off small. There's so many options to grab things for like under $5 right there. There's a lot of people putting affiliate codes out where you can get your first $10. If you go to the veve.me/star-wars URL, you can sign up and get $10 from Veve there too. That's a nice little entryway to get comfortable with everything, how it works. And then watch more shows like this, right? Start to learn who the great content creators are out there that are putting out some fantastic work that help you understand what's going on. Follow people on X and socials. There will always be fudders. There will always be criticism. Take it in stride, and if it's a passion and you love it, then nobody can really tell you you're doing anything wrong, right? And so just enjoy your process and your experience. Yeah, my stuff, if you just go to go collect/blogs, I think it is. But if you just go to gocollect.com, there's a whole section of blogs. There's a wonderful array of writers there that I just talk about the digital and the physical interaction. There are some incredibly experienced people that know everything about comic collecting, grading, how to track sales, what's trending in the industry, in the market, how do these things interact. There's tons of calculators, and you can get a good idea of what assets are selling for in the physical world that might help your experience in the digital world. If it's not really selling well physically, what's the reason it would be better digitally? So take the time to learn, I would say, would be the big advice. And there's tons of content. So yeah, that's probably there. Yeah, the shout outs, it'll take me another hour to go through, but there's so much good content.
Yeah,
Yeah, Jan, I love your
definitely.
show. I've been watching it since you started. I know I miss Veve and 3 and my collectibles, Aaron, when he was running those shows, but Veve was able to pick up those incredible talents.
Yeah,
They run some
definitely.
shows now that when the two of them are doing their YouTube thing, I really like watching those.
Yeah, the quality ramped up massively, I think, on
Massive.
that part.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, I like Randy Chavez. I like watching him and Mr. MC1, go at it back and forth. I love O'Milly Tees and Collectors Hub Mainsy on X when they do their live spaces. A lot of times I'll just have these things on while I'm working and just hearing what the latest news and trends are. Boy, Alex Osman collects. I love what he does with comic book reading. That's
Mm-hmm.
just that's the passion right there. There's a guy that's grinding it out because he likes comics and he's letting people read comic books on YouTube,
Yeah.
right? Um, it's fun. True Podcasts, Hinano and D. I always give them shout outs. I love what they're doing over in Hawaii. They're building content and they're showcasing where this is all going. I got to meet them in Hawaii, which was wonderful. Yeah, I'm probably missing 100 people, and I apologize, but just go on
But as you
YouTube and type
mentioned,
in
so many
Veve.
good people out there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just wonderful, right? There's all this talent, there's all this support, there's all this opportunity to learn and enjoy. And again, we're on two different parts of the planet here,
Yeah.
connected because of this four-letter brand, right? I love it. It's part of the passion that keeps me going for it, for sure. So,
Great.
but yeah, and really appreciate you having me on too. This was
Definitely,
great.
it was a pleasure. I mean, it was a
Yeah.
great conversation, in my opinion. And I want to add one more thing to what you've said for new collectors. I think curiosity is so important. Just dip your toe in it, see if you like it. If not, it's totally fine. Not everything is for everyone. And yeah, guys, and
Yeah.
if you've enjoyed that conversation, also just let us both know what were your like favorite topics down in the comments, and I would highly appreciate you leaving a like or a follow to the channel. And yeah, see you guys in the next
Yeah.
video. Bye
Thank
bye.
you, everybody. All right.
Ah, Chris, that was awesome.
That was fun. Yeah.